Hi everyone, this is OCD Live. I'm Ali Greymond, and let's get to some questions. So the first question I had is, what types of OCD are the most common? And actually, I get this question a lot because I think everybody wants to feel that they're not the only one suffering with this. And trust me when I tell you, I talk to a lot of people every day. I talk to people about OCD, and it's you're not the only one suffering. All of the OCD types are repeating types over and over again. People get the same type of OCD. Now, the most common ones are harm OCD in all of its ways, um, such as like driving OCD, maybe something with contamination, like people are afraid that they'll spill something or they'll poison somebody somehow. Um, and this kind of goes into the cleaning OCD because the person will clean, but it's a harm OCD underneath. Also, religious OCD is very common. HIV OCD is very common. Homosexual OCD is very common. Sexual OCD is very common. What else? Relationship OCD is very common. Cheating OCD, false memory OCD, of course. So these are the types of OCD that I see pretty much on daily basis, and they are similar, but they're just slightly different from person to person, from situation to situation. But generally, the recovery is the same, and the process of getting the OCD is the same. Just the situation and the reason why they got this OCD is a little bit different. This is why I have books on each specific type of OCD, because some people are like, well, why don't you just write one big book? Well, I think that a person with religious OCD doesn't need to read about a person with false memory OCD or cheating OCD. They're different types of things, but they need to read about their own type of OCD, how to deal with the intricacies of their type of OCD, and how their OCD progresses, how it gets better, all this stuff, but specifically to their specific need. Because it's there, even though the recovery is the same in general, there's so many different intricacies when it comes to the specific types, and the person just doesn't know them unless they've dealt with them. And as you know, that because I'm talking to so many people about basically, say, same 10 types, for example, they're around 10, maybe a little more types of OCD. I know these intricacies, and that's why I'm trying to put it in every book. So just in case you guys had questions why there's so many books. So the next question I had, the person is worried that they were playing, pretending to be married over the phone, and then now this person is married for real, and they're worried that they can't be married now because they were kind of like fake married over the phone. But so that's kind of the situation. So what's happening here is the situation, even though it was real, it's silly. But the more you think about it, the more real it starts to feel to you. And it's like this with any type of OCD. OCD can stem either from a real situation and have just more meaning attached to it than there was, or a completely fake situation, such as a false memory OCD, or a philosophical situation, like what if something happens, this kind of thing. So there's different ways that OCD works. But in this situation, even though it happened, it doesn't mean nearly what you're making it out to be, right? And that's the nature of OCD. That's how it goes. But to get over it, what you need to do is you need to pull back on the reaction. So the thought comes in that what if the marriage is not real now? What if it's not true? What if this and that? You say, I don't care. This is silly. This is OCD. I'm letting this go. I'm not going to pay attention to this anymore. And it works like this with all types of OCDs. Sorry, guys, by the way, my voice is really kind of weird today because I'm a little bit sick. Um, but with this OCD, there's nothing powering it up except for you going over the situation. For exposures for this, it would be great if you could spend more time with your husband, do nice things, this and that. Pretend like this situation from the past doesn't exist, okay? And then as you do these things, you will at first feel like you're being fake, like you're not doing the right thing, like you're lying to yourself, like you're lying to your partner. All of these feelings are very common, and they're part of the OCD spectrum. So you can't pay attention to those feelings. They're false. All you have to do is go with the situation and continue to do what you're doing. Continue to follow the path and spend time with your husband doing exposures, because that would be exposure for you, because it's going to bring up those OCD feelings, right? So by doing all of this, you're saying to your brain that I don't care what you tell me. I don't care what you think is real, not real. I'm not paying attention to this anymore. And you will see that the OCD thought is going to start to diminish. But if you keep going with it and keep trying to go over the situation in your mind and trying to solve if it matters or if not, or what does God think of it, and things like that, then you're going to make your OCD worse. So, and also you mentioned you have like a physical symptoms of tightness in your chest and knot in the stomach. These are very common, and this tells me that you're seeking a lot of self-reassurance. So you need to stop paying attention to this thought. Get yourself distracted with something, anything. It doesn't matter, but when this thought comes in, it's off limits. You can't think about it. You're choosing to ignore it. The feelings might tell you still to pay attention to it, but you're making a choice to ignore the situation, right? And as you're making a choice, your brain will see, okay, she's making a choice to think that this is not important, therefore it's not important. I'll let this go and I'll stop sending her these thoughts. And then at this point, you'll be able to emotionally let go of the situation, which will make you, which will enable you to see it just like everybody else sees it, that this is really nothing. But right now, even though you kind of logically know that it's nothing, it doesn't feel like nothing because you're so emotionally attached. So once you detach, you will see it from a third person perspective and you'll see like, wow, this was silly. But right now, you're so involved in it that you're kind of you're powering it up basically, and you have to stop powering it up. So let's reiterate what I was saying in just a few short words. No more reassurance, self-reassurance, going over the situation, anything like that. No more thinking of the consequences, what if this, what if that. No more avoiding things. If you are avoiding things like spending time with your husband, you want to make sure that you're actually pushing yourself into those situations on purpose in order to do exposures. And when you do an exposure, again, not buying into what OCD will tell you. Because if you do an exposure and then buy into the anxiety, then you're making yourself worse. Because again, you're saying to your mind that it's relevant. So you want to do the exposure correctly by spending time with your husband. Then you get feelings of guilt. You don't pay attention to those feelings, and you continue to spend time with your husband. The anxiety will go up, but you're going to do nothing, and then the anxiety will go down on its own. So right now, there is no way to fix the level of anxiety because your current, right now, level of anxiety comes from in the past, you were paying attention to it. So your brain marked it as important because you were paying attention to the situation. So now it knows that it's important and it's sending you anxiety based on that uh, past knowledge. What you are doing now when you're saying, listen, it's not important, I'm not paying attention to it anymore, you're lowering your level of anxiety for the future. Your current level of anxiety is what it is. But your tomorrow or the next day level of anxiety is going to be based on what you do today. So it's very important that you resist and all of these feelings are based on your brain thinking something is true when it's not. So feelings, emotions, anxiety, all of it is false. Don't buy into it. If you're starting your sentence with, well, I feel that something, 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 this is OCD. Because you know this and this, but you feel this and that. There's a big difference there. And OCD it can't fight your logic, but it can get your feelings, you know? So if it gets your feelings, you can't do anything about it. You just have to detach yourself from those feelings, and then when they normalize, then you'll see that it's nothing, and then the feelings will come back to normal. So it's just a process. So I hope this kind of clears it up for you. You know my email, info@youhaveocd.com. So if something is not clear, please ask and I'll explain more. So the next question I have is about driving OCD. And this is kind of a question where you can see how many intricacies are there. The person is asking, if I get anxious during driving, if I spend a little bit of time looking around some more before I pull out of the driveway or whatever. Um, is that a bad thing? Is it like an exposure, or is it like reassurance, or what is it? And see, this is what I mean, that there's a lot of specific things that, yeah, generally you have to refuse reassurance, all this stuff. But how do you do this in this specific situation? Because driving generally is a dangerous situation and you can get hurt. Um, I do advise that if you are feeling extremely anxious, that you shouldn't drive. Even though it would be an exposure and all of this stuff, this is not the type of exposure we want. Because I had clients who had a different type of OCD, not driving OCD, but they were so anxious in the moment that they weren't paying attention and they got into accidents. That was before they were talking to me and they understood of what was supposed to happen and what you can do and what you can't do. Because this is important to understand, that there is a difference between doing an exposure when you're ready for it. Exposure is like an exercise. You know, when you get up and go, for example, if you go to the gym, you're ready, you're set, you got your gear, you got your outfit, you're going to the gym. That's how you should be when you're doing exposure. You're ready, you're prepared, you're doing it. If it's a planned exposure, unplanned, of course, right? But if you feel like you are not ready and if you feel like the anxiety is overwhelming, don't drive because you can't get in an accident. And because your focus is not there. Your focus is on your OCD, and your focus needs to be on the driving as much as possible. And I know you said that you've been cleared and everything is fine to drive, but still, you want to be on the safe side. Now, with looking back when you're pulling out of the driveway or like taking another look never hurts because it is safety, right? But if you find that you are looking again and again and again and again, then that's too much. That's reassurance. So looking once, even looking twice is fine. Looking 10 times, there's not going to be anything that you haven't seen the first 2 times that you're going to see on the 10th time, right? So there is, with driving specifically, there's safety, and then there's also how like how far are you going to go with the safety? Like you don't want to go too far where nobody in the world would do this unless they had OCD, right? So you want to kind of have that line. But at the same time, never avoid driving because the more you avoid, the worse you will feel. And it's disabling, you know, when you stop driving specifically because not because you can't drive or because of OCD generally, but because your OCD deals with driving, then the more you avoid, the harder it will be for you to get behind the wheel again. So never get in that situation. Also, things like recording yourself or having somebody else drive with you or having some sort of a markers or like some sort of like a like ways to figure out if something happened or not. All of these things will only lead to more of this type of OCD because they're reassurance. So try to avoid all of those. If you are doing them, pull back on them. And you will get more anxiety. And like I said in my last question, the anxiety is based on the past. Because you were paying so much attention in the past, you have a lot of anxiety now. But what you're doing now will have an effect on how your anxiety will be in the future. So the less you pay attention to now, the less anxiety you will have in the future. Okay, so another question I have is what about real life event OCD? So the person is worried. I guess what happened is they've done like an impulsive thing with leaving their child in the car for a second impulsively, not or for a few minutes or whatever. I'm not sure about the exact details. And now the person feels bad and is going over all of the consequences of what could have happened and how dangerous that was, and that it wasn't a good choice. Okay, so with this type of situation, yes, it's a real event. Yes, the choice is not really good because yeah, things could happen, and you know we don't live in a world where it's not dangerous, where this kind of thing is dangerous. You know, like something could have happened, but it's in the past. You have to move on. You've obviously learned that this is not a good choice. You have to move on from it. Because you driving yourself crazy with it is not really helping the situation. It's creating an OCD situation based on that event. And if you keep going like this and going over the situation, what's going to happen is you're going to be triggered by other things that are similar in nature, such as Like, for example, worrying about, well, what if the seatbelt's not working properly, or what if this is not, or what if that's going to happen, or all kinds of things. So you really can't focus anymore on the situation. We're all people. We make good choices, we make bad choices. You have to move on from it, because the more you focus on this, the worse you're going to feel. So I'm sure that everybody listening, there's not one person who hasn't done one thing that they think is, it's not a good thing, or that they regret. You know, really nothing happened. But yes, something could have happened. But the thing is now that you know that, this wasn't a good choice, but nothing happened, you have to move on and just don't do it in the future. That's all you can do. Focusing on what you did, and how it was, whatever, like how you're saying, like it was careless and all of this, is only going to make your situation worse. you know you can't focus on that, because it's the attention. The more you focus, the more your brain is going to think it's relevant, and the more your brain is going to send you back this topic. Right now, even think about it this way, that while you are worrying about it, you are taking that time away from your time with your child, because you're worried about it. You're not present in the present moment. So, and I've seen situations where the person is so worked up about their OCD stuff that they're not noticing real dangerous situations in the moment, because they're worked up about something else. So your focus right now doesn't need to be on that past situation. It's past, nothing happened, you've learned your lesson, who cares? Move on. There's nothing here. The only thing that's holding you here in this situation with OCD is your emotions. And to, again, just like I said in the other questions, right? That to detach from those emotions, you have to pull away. You have to let the feelings, let the anxiety do what it's going to do. The anxiety is based on the past, like I said in the other ones as well. You can't do anything about it now. It's separate from you. It's coming because in the past you were thinking about it so much. Nobody who doesn't have OCD would worry about this. They would think, oh, that was not a good choice. I'm not gonna do that again. You know, and that's it. And they would move on. You are keeping yourself here. You are keeping yourself a prisoner in this situation. You need to let go. And you will feel like you're a bad person for letting go, or you're not being, like if you're around people, you might feel just like everybody else feels with OCD, that you're not being true to yourself, or you're lying, or whatever. All of these are OCD feelings. They're nothing to do with you. So you have to detach, and then you will see that this is really a situation that's not worth your attention. And as a parent, there's going to be times where you do things that you could have been better at, and maybe you didn't have all the information, maybe you just didn't think about things. This kind of stuff happens, but it's just that you learn from it. You're not going to do it again. That is all that matters. Stop being a prisoner of this situation. It means nothing. It's done. Move on. And I'm telling you, if you're going to go through it this way, even though you're going to have feelings of guilt, even though you're going to have feelings of shame or whatever, those are parallel to you. They shouldn't be going through you. Don't allow them to go through you. Let it go. You're obviously thinking about this 24/7. So I would highly doubt that this would ever happen again. So there's no, you're not guilty here, like you have to move on. Okay. So I hope this makes it clear. And if you're gonna follow what I'm saying, you should feel better quite quickly. So within a week to 2 weeks, depending on how long you've had this thought, you should start to feel it lighten up. But you have to be strong with it. And um, even though your brain is going to come in and say, okay, this, pay attention to me with this thought, you have to say, no, this situation is in the past, I'm moving on, and keep going like that. So I hope this kind of makes sense to you. If you have any other questions, please let me know. My email is info@youhaveocd.com. Also, you could go to youhaveocd.com. There's a recovery program that is one-on-one with me. There's also all my books available there. There's a lot of free information there as well. So please check that out. And thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.